Good morning, everybody. And you'll notice I actually remembered to hit the record button, so we are officially underway. So we are just wanted to start out. Does anyone have any questions so far about today, about getting your sketches recorded and all that kind of thing? This is our 6th year doing it, 6th year doing it through Oakland schools, so we're pretty much old news for them. So we're going to turn it over to Adam in just a moment, and then Scott Sowers is going to join us for the second half of this 1 hour. And then we're going to just have an open forum between 11 and 12:30. Anybody wants to jump in, share ideas, tips for DAFT, festival questions, gear ideas, things like that. Then we'll pick it up again at 12:30 with Josh, who's one of our MPI editing instructors, and go from there. So anyway, I am very happy to turn it over to Adam, who is our newest board member as well. And I was one of his, I visited at my day job. I went to his classroom and visited, and I was very impressed by the setup. Very much a podcast talk show kind of thing. And it was very engaging for the students as well as for me as a guest. And I'll turn it over to Adam to talk about that experience. And again, always feel free to throw questions in the chat window or jump in if you have anything to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll apologize in advance for my internet connection. I feel like it's really lousy today, so just make frantic gestures if if I'm cutting out or whatever. And then am I able to share my screen, Kevin? It's not essential, but I had a couple.
Yeah, that's the theory. Let me make sure I've allowed that. Yep, you're all set.
All right. So just first, I've moved down to the basement to this way over the top setup that I have going on for this right now. And I put this in that spreadsheet, but I think I had heard about this from Bill last December, and then we got it in March, probably about the day before everything shut down. Hopefully kids will still be interested in podcasting, but it took me probably all of 10 minutes to figure out how to use it. And it is probably back ordered for a reason. I'm sure everyone and their brother has a podcast now, but it is just fantastic. I honestly can't believe with all that you get, it only costs this much money. So I strongly recommend it if you have any students at all who are interested in podcasting. And then I'm hoping that we will be over at Troy Athens having students use it soon. It was interesting to hear earlier just how different everyone is and what their teaching schedule and experience has been. We have been, I think I've seen my kids in person a total of 2 days. So we've been all remote. We tried hybrid for a little bit, and then it's been all remote. So I guess just a little bit of background about me to show how I got to this part. I did not go to school for any of this. I am an English history teacher. I started teaching the class because at Athens and in Troy, this for some reason was in the English department and no one was teaching it. And I said, I'll give it a go. I'll try. So in this pursuit of mine that I did here with guest speakers, I really just kind of started from zero. I don't have any friends who work in the industry. I have just a handful of kids now who have I know anyone. I didn't really have any network. So to go back to June, I was on the task force for Troy to return to learn. And I think it was clear within about the first 20 minutes of the first task force meeting of return to learn that we're not going back to school. And I said, well, that's going to really suck for a film production class. Not quite sure what we're going to do to fill that time. And then I heard it was going to be 90-minute blocks. And I was like, oh, God, that's even worse. Now I got to fill 90 minutes. So part of it was, yeah, I find a way to fill this time. But the bigger part is I started thinking with remote learning, like, is there anything that we can do that can be better than we would do it ordinarily? And the thing that I struck on was having guest speakers in, because it was hard to, find someone, get them there, arrange. Now everyone's used to Zoom, and it's just easy to essentially cold call people, which is something I hate doing, but I've gotten kind of used to doing it. So the first thing I did, I just put a post on social media, on our class Twitter page, on my personal Facebook page, and just said, hey, if anyone knows anyone that would be interested in helping, please let me know. And I actually got really, really good response from that. For the first, yeah, I thought audio might be cutting. Sorry. Maybe I'll move upstairs if it gets continues to be bad. But I made this. This is my first spreadsheet. So this took us for the first, I guess, 2 months of class, and it was pretty solid. Like I maybe in here it kind of got to be a bit of maybe a drag, maybe too much for the kids, but I loved it, and the feedback as they did as well. And then our schedule like changed, so I had to do some rescheduling, and so just with our projects, this has been since then to the end, it's been a little more spread out now. When we originally had moved earlier to starting at 7:20, so it was pretty much all in third hour for a while there. But I mean, it's just been fantastic. And for the first part, I relied strongly on just connections of connections who people happen to know. Once it got into October and we'd been at it for a while, I was able to be a little more targeted with it. So I started looking to people I'd be interested in hearing from. I put it out to the students, what kind of person, or is there a specific person you'd be interested in hearing from? And I've always been about, I don't need them to be famous or a big face or have an Oscar, just anyone who in any way is connected to the film industry. So there's students still in film school here, people who have just interned, people who are probably more into like marketing, but they use video as part of what they do. Just anyone whose life has been touched by video. And because the responses I would get from students were like, "Oh, I want to hear from Mr. Beast." And like, well, I will happily try to get Mr. Beast on here. Someone I had talked to though, and link, not looking for him, but this guy Brady, who basically is a director as part of his channel right here. We've been messaging back and forth, but haven't worked that one out yet. But I don't know. To me, that's almost more interesting than the person on YouTube themselves, because they're the ones kind of doing the work and the production. So yeah, LinkedIn. Gosh, I sound old when I talk about LinkedIn, but I'll put in a big plug for LinkedIn. I actually went to a conference at U of M last March, and it was on the state of social media. I only teach a half day. I also work for the district doing video and creative stuff. So they wanted me to go to that, and I was happy to. But they were just raving about LinkedIn. And I guess what better crowd for LinkedIn than a crowd full of social media professionals? They were just saying this is what it's all about. This is the best engagement. But they did show statistics like it has the highest engagement of all the platforms and on and on. But anyway, that I didn't even really bother with LinkedIn up until that day, and didn't really know what my purpose on LinkedIn was until June, when I started, searching up different people. So one of the things that I had searched, and I just did it again here, was this film, They Shall Not Grow Old, which was made by Peter Jackson, using old World War I footage. And I really can't recommend it strongly enough, especially if you can find the making of, because it's just fascinating how they took all this old footage. And we've all seen the old grainy, people look like they're running in double time speed, and they took it and they retimed it, and they colored it, they added audio to it. It's just fascinating how much they breathe life into this. And so it was only in theaters for like 2 days, but as part of the theater experience, they showed the making of, and that, to me, the film was just unbelievable, but the making of was just incredible, because it's kind of everything we do, but like in a purpose I'd never seen before. So I personally really wanted to hear from someone who worked on that. So I started looking into Wingnut Studios, and then through some of these profiles, and gosh, you just really feel like a stalker on LinkedIn because it says if you've seen someone's profile. But I found Greg here, and Greg's in New Zealand. That's where the production is based. So I connected with him and then actually got an email from him because my email's on LinkedIn. He said, hey, what I try to actually
Yeah, Adam, I think we lost you here. I did put a phone number in your chat window if you wanted to try just phoning in. Your video is fine. So I don't know if maybe the just dialing in on your phone might work. Raise your hands if you've done what Adam's doing right now.
I'm going to move upstairs and hope that it's better.
Okay.
So you might hear some children squealing in the background, but
While Adam's
is that any
moving,
better?
Go ahead. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, Leslie, go ahead.
All right, yeah, go ahead with
Oh,
your
I just
question. I
wanted-
can pick right back up.
I was just going to say that I have had a lot of success reaching out to people through LinkedIn as well. So I appreciate you sharing this idea to find guest speakers. I think it's a really great idea. And I hadn't even thought to use LinkedIn to do it. So I just wanted to give you the feedback that I think it's a really great suggestion.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure where I cut out. I know I was talking about this film and then a guy that worked on it.
Yeah, it wasn't too far
Did
back.
any of that
Yeah,
get through?
he emailed you, I think, and that's where we lost you.
Okay, all right. So we didn't miss much. He just emailed me and said, hey, what does a film teacher in Michigan want to do with a film editor in New Zealand? And I explained it to him, and he came in and he was awesome. So yeah, I am an introvert by nature. It is very hard for me to say, just pick up the phone or, cold message someone here on LinkedIn. But Dick Rockwell, actually, whose wife I had worked with and I know has been a part of DAFT, he had messaged me on Facebook when I first put it up. And he said, I guess prophetically, the film community is very supportive. They all know that they didn't get where they are without help from someone. I'm sure your feedback will be great. And we've had, I think, about 40 people in so far. So it's just been a lifesaver in terms of teaching in this particular time, but also just extremely beneficial. Like, I think every speaker we have, there's at least one or two kids that either message me or stay after to say how great it was. So just what I do ordinarily, I send them our link and I record the session on that podcaster thing. We have to record our sessions on Zoom, and I make them all mute. And the reason I make them all mute is one, I don't want any of the cross noise going on. Two, because I feel like I've kind of put myself out there and they're doing us a big favor by coming in to join. I really, really, really don't want anything to go wrong. So what I do is I utilize the chat window kind of like we are here, and which of course you can't see when I'm screen sharing. So thanks for all the messages about freezing, but I just have them type questions to me in there, and sometimes I will deliver it for them. If you've taught it all on Zoom, especially at a high school level, you probably know how thrilled they are to speak in front of the entire class on Zoom. So sometimes they're just content to let me ask the question, which is fine. They seem to be engaged. And from there then, I do some sharing. So I use our class Twitter page just to show, a quick clip of when they've been in. And then I've used Anchor to kind of house the recording. And it's something, I guess, more of an archive for me. I'm not trying to get a highly rated podcast or anything. I guess somewhat helpfully is that my iTunes link hasn't really worked yet. And I think part of the problem is I had a very similarly named podcast before, and it's just not, you have to do more searching for it than you should. But the students have access to this episode page. So if they ever want to go back and listen to anything, great. Or even better, is that I now have all this stuff for future classes to go and get into then. The last thing that I do is my principal was kind enough to get this cute little Athens TV note card printed up for us. So I always send a thank you, and then we have stickers, and genuinely I am thankful that they came in. But then I guess I didn't even piece this together until we had a guy from Ireland come in. So I had sent one to him, and then he posted about it on Twitter about how it was really cool. And then they just had this conversation about why it was fun and great. So apparently I'm trying to leave an impression, a gentle reminder to the person about who I am and my branding. And like, I really think the networking here has been phenomenal, because in terms of what Dick Rockwell had said about support, like every single person says to the students, hey, if you need any help, email me, let me know. And I'm telling them, you might not know that right now. Like if you're a junior in high school, then who knows, right? But years down the road, you can always email and say, hey, that one time you came into my class was great, just, and it's up to them to kind of build the connection. So that's a piece, honestly, in teaching this class, never would have crossed my mind. Networking, how to build connections, how important it is. But it's something we've covered a lot now that we've been doing this. So, all right, let me look at these questions. Generally, I usually, so when I email the person, I say, hey, thanks for joining us. Usually these run about 20 to 30 minutes. It's just Q&A. There's no need to prepare anything. If you want to share something, that's fine. And some have like shared their screen to show how they're editing or something. Yeah, usually 20 to 30 minutes. I've had some go up to 55. I've had some be more like 15. It just kind of depends. Like, honestly, you get lost in talking sometimes, as I'm probably doing right now. But yeah. So in terms of multiple sessions, when I send this spreadsheet, I usually only ask them to stay for one, but they can see the slots. So like Kevin, for example, if Kevin was willing to come into all of them, I am more than willing to have them come in. This guy here, I don't see him. Where's Reed? Oh, there he is. So Reed, he was one that volunteered to do two. He was a cinematographer in Grand Rapids. And yeah, like I feel like, now that I've been doing this more, I'm more confident in contacting people and asking them, and people just kind of come in from wherever. So just I can run it down real quick. So Kevin Walsh, we all know and love. Thanks for coming in, Kevin. He was able to talk about MPI and DAFT and even stuff he does just on his own and freelancing. Michael McBride was someone that like stood up in a wedding that one of my former students was in, and he's a producer out in New York. Mark Zakalix, a friend of my sister-in-law, he's a producer. Jeff Hinton is a former Athens grad, and he does audio stuff down in North Carolina. Alyssa Danzing. So I had a group that they're trying to do, they wanted to do Athens Bachelor. And obviously we're not in person. So now they're trying to do Athens Zoom Bachelor. So like, oh, it'd be really cool to hear from someone on The Bachelor. So Alyssa's a casting director on The Bachelorette, who's actually from North Farmington High School. She was great. Chris is a former student of mine. He works at the National Guard. He was actually deployed in Iraq as a photojournalist when he talked with us. Michael's director at Fox Sports. Jeff does audio out in Burbank. Mallory just graduated from MSU. And actually works with Mark as a assistant set producer. That's probably the absolute wrong term. Lauren, former student, she works as an editor for the Pistons. Brendan as a film professor at OU. Kenny works for BBC Comedy and Development over in London. Brett is my first student in my first class, and he's now on Channel 7. So he was a really cool one to hear from. Emily Jean is the girlfriend of a former student. She's like a vlogger influencer on YouTube. So, and Marilyn is a set script supervisor, sorry, also works over in London. So it's just all over the map. And that has been the best part. Like it's been good to kind of target certain interests, to be honest. They don't have that many. I've heard like, oh, screenwriter or director, and that's been about it. One thing I would like to do more is put the onus of finding the people onto the students. So one that actually worked really well for, I had a student named Zach Hampel, and a student of mine looked at his name on the spreadsheet, and he thought it was this Zach Hampel, and he was really excited. The Zach Hampel who like goes to baseball games and tries to catch a ton of foul balls, and now apparently has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I said, well, I hate to tell you, Angelo, it's not that Zach Hampel, but try. So he emailed him, and he came in, and it took a few weeks of coordinating, but he spent he was actually after school hours. So that was cool because I could invite our middle schools in, the other high schools. Like there's probably about 60 people that came to that one and then heard from him. So I am sure if I started at zero, everyone in this room has connections that they can utilize, that they can invite in. And I just can't tell you how wonderful it has been. I'm hoping I can keep it going even after this is done, which is ideally soon. But this has been one of those great silver linings, I guess, like I hoped it would be back in June when I started kind of planning it out.
Yeah, it's like putting the upside of COVID list, it's
Yeah.
like spending time with my family, not having relatives over at Thanksgiving, things like that. Do any of you have experiences similar to this, at least in wrangling guest speakers or bringing in using podcasting or anything like that?
I have not had nearly this many guest speakers, but I've basically this is my third year now teaching these classes, and I'm able to bring in about 4 or 5 guest speakers a year. Just either going through my personal connections or randomly my assistant principal's brother directed Harry and the Hendersons. And so he just showed up one day. But I don't know, the kids love it, and they love being able to ask stupid questions as well as smart questions. What kind of car do you drive?
Right.
Sure.
Well, it does. It's funny. I can still remember field trips I took in 6th grade and guest speakers we had. So it is funny how important that is. But if you ask me my 6th grade teacher's name, I'd have to give you a few minutes. Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's cool. And if you guys ever don't mind, when you go up to change your name up there, if you could put your school you're from, that'd be cool too for people to see. Any other experiences or questions for Adam about any of this?
I have a guy named Sam Orender. I used to work. Well, he was a acquaintance of mine in North Carolina where I used to work, and he ended up going to Hollywood, working for a company called Laugh Productions. And what he was he was a assistant director on all the Disney shows that your kids at this age group that they're at right now in high school. He did all the shows from Hannah Montana to, Kicking It. He was out there with the actors. And what was so cool about it was the kids, when they saw his bio, I'd show the bio before he came on, and he's done this a couple times for me. And I don't have nearly as many people come into my class like you do. And I think it's a great idea. But he was able to talk about the behind the scenes of all these shows and what he did with the actors and how they put these sitcoms together. And I mean, he was on almost every single one of the shows that, I can't even think of some of them now, but my kids are about the same age as my students right now. So it was great. And his name's Sam Orender. It's Orender. He's retired, just retired. Rides around in an RV. His wife passed away, and he loves to communicate with students. So he would be a great one for you guys, because right at, for anybody 16 to 18 right now, they would know all the shows, that he worked on. It was really cool.
Cool. Thanks, Pat. We had a few questions in the chat window. Leslie put on, our administrators are putting a lot of pressure on us to get through the curriculum. I'm wondering if anyone has found a way to use guest speakers to check off curriculum requirements. Good question.
And I mean, all I can say to that is, I mean, my administrator has always been very supportive about this, and I think thrilled that, hoping some other people would try things like this. If anything, we have the issue of we're still too focused on the curriculum that really can't be done anymore in my building. But I don't know. I think the way I would have explained it if it was brought up, and I was like, look, it's really hard to teach film production. You never see anyone. They only have their phone. Like, you can do some things. This ultimately has been better than what we would be able to do otherwise. And it's not like it takes up the entire time. So we're still, everything's just slower. But again, I haven't had that kind of pressure, fortunately. And then in terms of tour, I have no idea if this counts, but most of the people, if they're where they're at, they like even volunteer before we ask, oh, well, let me show you around where I'm at. I don't know if that counts, but.
To piggyback on that, in my district, we used to take tours, but like our school has closed all field trips. Kids aren't allowed to go places. We had students in the beginning of the school year interning at local TV stations. And now with the governor's order to work from home, those kids can't go. So I think you should be questioning your administration if they're still saying that you need to physically go take tours, because, and we added it into, my CTE director said to add this into our advisory meeting to ask specific questions like, what is your COVID plan? Are you accepting tours? And everyone said, no, we're not accepting tours right now. So we could document that so that we can count these other things to show the state.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've done since March at MPI is virtual tours. What we bring students on stage, or we walk them around, or we've got preset videos we've done, but that's about it, really. I mean, obviously you want to keep the germs down. If you guys read in the chat window, there's some good conversation going on about that, and sounds like Stephanie and John both say that the districts are a little bit more flexible on that piece. I think from what I understand, last year, the CTE requirements also are a little bit more flexible in terms of what they allow as work-based learning. Jen, you're nodding. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, they're pretty much allowing almost anything if you can justify it. So I had a journalist come in from New York, Caitlin Kelly, and she met with my students, and I'm counting that as a field trip. And then our Oakland Schools has bought NetPress, so we can contact different people in the industry across the country, and they're counting that as a field trip too. And that was purchased through Oakland Schools. So if you're in Oakland County, you will have access to that. You just need to reach out to Oakland Schools. But yeah, they've relaxed a lot. And I have just, as a teacher, come to the realization there are some skills my students just will not have this year. And I have to be okay with that, because there's just no way. I've been virtual the entire time. Never even seen my students in person yet. So.
Wow. And no plans to see them soon, I'll bet, huh?
Nope.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions for Adam on this? It's really cool, the podcasting. So the Anchor is the hosting site you use, is that right?
Anchor, and then that just nicely
Is that
sends
free?
out to all the platforms.
Is it free?
It's free. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we use at MPI, we have a podcast, and we use Libsyn, Libsyn, and it's I use that for my own podcast too, and it's got a really nice blast out. So if iHeartRadio can pick it up, and it gives you like 9 different outlets for it. So if you go to iHeartRadio and you type in MPI Crew Call, you'll bring up our episodes, for example. And it was pretty exciting when it actually worked, but it's quite a, and the other thing, I don't know if Anchor does, but it allows you to spit out a really nice graphic that can be dropped into anything. They do that in Anchor.
Yeah, so I am by no means an expert. I get a lot of help from my coworker who really knows his stuff. All I can say about podcasting is I've been trying to do it since I started teaching the class in 2010. it's so easy now compared, like it used to be the big, like I started and gave up so many times, and now it's like nothing. So probably why you see so many podcasts out there, just because it's become really easy to just produce and distribute.
Yeah, Michael Kaufman, you know, Adam started out this session sharing the road package, and I know that's what you've got too, correct?
Yeah, we have the road package and we love it. It's
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah,
But I don't know if you mentioned Jamie Flanagan offering Blueberry and his connection to Blueberry. So you can get unlimited podcast hosting through Blueberry for $60 for the whole year. And they're offering that to Michigan video teachers through MIPA.
Okay, yeah.
So it's called Blueberry, Blubrry. I'll put a link in the chat. But if you mention you're a Michigan school, it's $60 for the year, and it's unlimited hosting, and it's pretty slick.
It's got a really nice interface too with WordPress. It's a plugin for WordPress. So if you run a website or your district runs a website for it, it gives you really good controls for podcasting playback. And Jamie Flanagan is at Fraser, and he's, you know, he's involved in MIPA and Michael is too, and many of the people here. And if you're not yet part of the MIPA email thread, it's a really, I just like to look at it. I'm not teaching this stuff anymore, but you guys, you really put together some great Q&As on that whole thing. So Adam, thank you very much. That was great. And Adam will be bopping in and out throughout the day. And Adam, if I created that the spreadsheet, I put a link in there, everybody. I'm going to save the chat and put it out there so we can have the conversation recorded as well. But also we have a Google Drive that we have created that will also be a place for all of our presenters, or if any of you have any material you want to share, or just a screenshot of a really good Amazon package you'd recommend, that'd be cool. Okay, so we're going to move to their second guest speaker, Scott Sowers. Scott is somebody I was lucky enough to meet 2 years before I stopped teaching, because I was teaching in the evening at University of Phoenix from 2010 to 2012. And Scott was the guy who onboarded all of the new instructors, all of the adjunct faculty. And then when I left West Bloomfield and I worked for 4 years at University of Phoenix, I was even more lucky because Scott was in the office right next door to me. And we found out all these things we have in common as well. He's on our DAFT, he's on our advisory board here at MPI, but he's not only an amazing online trainer and a teacher trainer, but he's also a caterer. He's also a sound guy. He's a musician. He's a singer, and one of those Swiss Army knives, I think, that a lot of people here are. So anyway, I've asked Scott to share some of the information he shared with our instructors here at MPI for ways to keep students engaged. The block of time we used to have at Phoenix was 4 hours. And I would go in and watch Scott teach, and he took that 4-hour chunk and made it very, very quick. And you guys all know it's like watching a student's short film. A 2-minute short film from a student can feel like an hour and a half, and a half-hour film can feel like 2 minutes, depending on how it's put together. So I consider Scott to be like a really good editor for curriculum and putting it together. So I've asked him to share some of his tips and also to share his day job with us. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Kevin. My co-facilitators are chiming in already, so if you hear some dogs barking, Piper and Sophie are on the clock with me today. Thanks for that great introduction. My current role, I left the university about 4 years ago now, and my current role is in corporate training and development. So I work for a technology company that supports the public service industry, so law enforcement, fire, EMS, those types of things. And I write most of our leadership development programs that are not only for our public safety division, but also for, I'm doing our national onboarding and leadership development now. So this is near and dear to my heart when it comes to learning. It's what I've spent the last probably 20 years of my career doing as my primary function, with all of those other fun things that I like to do in the entertainment industry and things like that still as well. So glad to be here with you all today. And it looks like you've had some great conversation. I was able to listen to a little bit of the last segment, and it's interesting because some of the things that you guys are already touching on are things that I wanted to share today as well. So I did create a short slide that I'd like to share with you. And it's just kind of got a bunch of ideas on it that I wanted to kind of have you guys chime in and tell me what your thoughts are, how you're managing within some of those things, and share some of your best practices with one another. And I think that's really one of the keys to learning, is to be able to share what everybody is doing with one another as well. So I kind of broke it down into 3 categories today. So leveraging technology, certainly in this virtual environment, we are teaching different than we ever have before. And so if we can leverage technology in ways that we haven't done or don't traditionally do in the normal classroom, then it's going to give us an opportunity to create new connection points for our learners. The next thing that I want to talk about are some of the activities. What are the activities that you guys are doing? What are some suggestions or recommendations? And I heard you guys talk about guest speakers and field trips, and looking at those from a virtual perspective. And then when it comes to content, what does content look like for us in this world? And I love the fact that somebody, I think it was a comment that they had posted, was some of this we just have to let go of. And really, that's probably one of the best tips that I can give you right now, is we can't teach the same way that we did when we were in a face-to-face environment. And so we really have to focus on the things that we can be successful with, and make that student driven. So I'll talk about some of those things, and hopefully you'll share some of your experiences with that as well. So in that first column that I put down, it's the leveraging technology. So one of the things that I first started doing, and I got a lot of our trainers within our organization to start doing, was including Poll Everywhere. Poll Everywhere, you can buy a free subscription to this. There's poll features in different platforms that you guys are using. But Poll Everywhere gives us an opportunity for students or learners to actually be able to, respond, and we can see a response immediately on the screen. It's coming there, it's, and they can watch as the poll actually changes as more and more responses come in. So that's a great way to kind of get students to do something different than just listen to what you're doing. Another thing that I put down was to use chat features, right? So you do have the chat features, and I know within this room, you guys are chatting away, although I can't see those right now on my screen. So I'll look for those in a moment. And then videos and podcasts. Those are great ways to interact with students as well. Put those into the curriculum, create them, add them to whatever that content is that you're delivering. There's tons of YouTube videos out there that can be incorporated into the classroom. And one of the things that I would say is with videos and things like that, let the students share some of the content that they're finding that helps drive their learning. Another thing that I put down was badges and certificates. It's important that students and learners have some sort of recognition for their achievements. And, if we can do digital badges with whatever it is, whatever medium that you're using, that would certainly be a great way for them to get some recognition for the work that they're doing as well. It may be that they do a certain amount of content and we can award them a badge, or they bring something to the classroom that they share. And maybe it's that video, and then they do something around that video that provides them an opportunity to earn badges. But that would be something that I would say you could structure, as you're planning your lessons. Say, here's the way that you're going to earn badges this semester, or whatever that time frame happens to be. The next thing that I put down was social media. Our students are really, really engaged with social media. So if there's a way that they can, you as the faculty or that teacher can leverage social media, creating Twitter hashtags or something like that, that they can link to or that you can drive them towards, that also helps engage them, whether it's inside the classroom or outside of the classroom. When they start seeing those things that they have a connection with, they're going to use that and say, oh, the next time I watch a certain film or something that's related to those course elements, you might be able to have them connect with that Twitter hashtag and talk about what it is that they're doing. And again, some of those things could be leveraged to actually create badges. So every time they hashtag something that's relevant to that learning experience, now they could work on earning a badge in that area. So my best practice tip in this area is to use multiple features. And when I say use multiple features, Kevin said that oftentimes our classes were 4 hours long. Typically what I'm teaching right now are three-hour long courses with one 10-minute or 15-minute break that I try and build in right in the center. As I do that, every class that I teach, I use a multitude or a blend of all of these things. So we may be in the middle of something and we'll do a poll everywhere question and they have to respond using a quick poll everywhere. And by the way, that is a free, there is a free version of poll everywhere for you. And it allows, I think, for 25 responses in that. And you can create wordles, you can create yes, no responses. There's all kinds of features that you can do even with the free version. And then, so I'll have a poll everywhere built into whatever that segment is of learning. And then I'll ask them to post something in the chat. Here's a, I'd like you to respond or give me some answers in this. So I'm varying the different types of things that I'm asking them to do while I go through whatever that content is. So could we ask what kinds of technology are you using to leverage to make the class more interactive or engaging? Is there anything anybody wanted to share? Not sure if I can see where the chat is, Kevin.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if there's a chat that might be a setting I have to, but if you want to maybe just disable your screen sharing for a moment.
Sure.
I'll try to figure. And any of our Zoom experts out there, if you guys know of a way to see the chat while you're sharing your screen, chime in.
Okay. All right, now I see the chat.
Well, Brooke, I know you use the poll everywhere because you used you'd recommended it because you said Specs Howard came and presented to your class and you found it very effective. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually Brandy Keeler from CCS. She came in.
CCS, I'm sorry. Yeah.
She came in with Poll Everywhere, and it was right in the lesson, and the kids like it. Sorry.
You can't have a Zoom session without a cat walking by and a dog barking. That makes it official. Hey, Brooke, I think you're muted right now. I'm not sure if you had wrapped up what you were saying or not.
Sorry, the mailman came and the dog's still barking.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Anybody else have something they're doing that's working really well to make those long classes shorter? Or what's made them really painful and you'd like to find a solution?
Has anybody leveraged social media tools in their classroom or outside of the classroom? Ask students to use that outside of the classroom?
I think Adam, our speaker just before you, was talking about he uses Twitter quite a bit, don't you, Adam?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a good resource.
Absolutely.
And you kind of you use it like a daily update often, quite, with what happened today kind of thing.
Yeah, and any time, I mean, it's been a little slow, but anytime there's a project done, try to get a clip of it or YouTube link or like daily news. Just we use it as much as we can. I think if you are a school that covers a lot of sports, for example, when those are actually going on, like we don't do really any live stuff. But our booster account is just very popular because they're always updating the scores. So I definitely think there's potential there if you can somehow get the information to you about what's happening in games. People really like to follow that on Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of good comments people have typed into the chat window too. And Stephanie said regarding the Chromebooks are the worst. Jennifer, Jennifer said that, and Stephanie agreed. And like I said, we're been taking care of our nephew for the last week and a half, and he's got a Chromebook, and every day it seems like a little gremlin comes in and changes the setting or something like that. So.
Yeah, I like it looks like from Mike talking about formative assessments, quizzes.com, the 321s. Kids list 3 things they use this week, 2 things unsure of, and 1 question you have. And then using Loom to record how to do something. So great suggestions there. A couple comments about Kami for document sharing. Yeah, and I actually touch on assessment, how important assessment is. So even in this environment, we still need to know that our learners are learning something, and that, you know, it should be student driven as well. So can we look at authentic assessment, figure out ways to do that in this environment that's a little bit different than what we would have in that traditional classroom. And of course, there are ways to do the traditional testing or assessment of learners using quizzes and different applications that are out there. But, you know, a lot of what you guys are doing with technology is it does need to be authentic assessment. You know, how can they show me what they're doing and what they've learned? And that's probably one of the big challenges that you guys have right now in this environment. Does anybody want to share some of the other things that they're doing for authentic assessment with their learners right now? So limitations based on the different applications that you have. So Google Meet in one district, Zoom's not allowed for the students. Figured out a way to show video clip from computer without tagging for the playback for the students, or vice versa. Does anybody have any suggestions in this area? Because I'll tell you what I had to do to get around this for now. Because I wasn't allowed to, we don't have Zoom in our workplace.
What I've been doing is just putting the link in the chat for the students and saying, okay, I'm going to mute on my end. Go ahead and watch it. But I can't guarantee they're watching it. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that we have. So, but that's exactly what I'm doing too, is with our platform, we were struggling trying to get people to watch videos. And so we would give them the link. And these are adults, and I don't know if they're doing what they're supposed to, you know. Typically I will say, okay, when we come back from this is what I want to know from you. So I leverage that with a question that they have to respond to either in the chat or through the poll everywhere, or something where, all right, can I validate that they've actually taken the time and watched some of this information? You know, the reality is, if it's engaging content, they're going to want to stay engaged with it. They're going to go watch that, and then they're going to know that, hey, there's something that I have to do around this as well. So thank you for that. Great suggestion.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in the chat window, guys, and I think you can save the chat window. If you know, I'll save it as well. But if you don't know how to do that, usually you just hover above those 3 little dots in the bottom where you would type in your thing, and it's got save chat, and it usually puts it in a folder that opens up automatically when you're done. So if that doesn't work for one of you, let me know, and I'll go into the Zoom underbelly and see if I can turn that on correctly.
Awesome.
I feel like I've been doing Zoom for 6 years and not since St. Patrick's Day, but it's really, the learning curve is pretty crazy. I see some comments about the Google surveys and using that for quizzes and things like that. And I just figured out the other day about how to get your survey results, or even if somebody adds something, how to get it emailed to you automatically. That took a little digging on my part. So I was really happy to see that. If you aren't sure, if you go to your results page before you make a spreadsheet, if you ever done Google surveys, there's a little another dots, of course, and you click that and it'll send an email to you automatically when some feedback happens. So.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways as I watch all of this is that there are so many different platforms out there and no one's consistent on these things. You know, each district is making their own decisions on what technology is being used. And that, of course, is a challenge for us because we can't share all the best practices because everybody doesn't have those same features and functionality. And so, you know, it's really important that, you know, when you learn something, you do share it so that somebody can say, oh, well, maybe that's available on my platform and I just have to figure out how to get to it and leverage that.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have anything that's happened in their district that was kind of trial by fire? Maybe where they were last spring and where they are now, and lessons learned or anything like that?
So we're a Google school, and so you know we had a lot of our lessons built on Google Slides, and so the district bought Pear Deck, and we can quickly convert those. I can add a feature that I can instantly get feedback from the kids. I can see who's responding, who's not responding, who's engaged, who's not engaged. I can do polls. I can do short answer. I could lock the screen and then I could show their answers and it's anonymous. It's been a really cool thing to see who's been engaged, who hasn't been engaged. And then you get a session report after each one that shows the responses and so forth. It's been nice, but it is something that the district purchased for all the teachers.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah. So, and again, you know, I'm using GoToTraining as my main platform in the workspace, and it allows me some of those same features and functionality. It actually allows me to be able to put students into breakout groups. I can monitor their activities. I can go in and see what they're doing in those breakout sessions. You know, I can also monitor how engaged they are when we're in the session as well, and things like that. And it's got a poll feature and chat features and a lot of these things that we're talking about that help us kind of track the engagement in those sessions. So one of the things that I have on my list is that, you know, it's really important that we increase student interactions with one another. That social learning is really important, and it's something that they're missing, not being in the classroom together, that workspace together. And so I really try and focus students on going and doing some sort of activity together. Sometimes that's a 20-minute activity that I go in and see what they're doing and kind of monitor each of those groups. Sometimes it is a 10-minute activity where, you know, I just expect them to come back with whatever it is that we've asked them to do. And then they have that opportunity to still have some of that social interaction with those groups. Mix those groups up just like I would in a normal classroom. I don't have the same students participating with one another in all of the sessions, maybe for one day, but the next day I would change up who that group is that's working together. Again, that social learning is really important in this virtual environment.
How many of you have used chat rooms or breakout rooms? Just show of hands if you're on the screen right now. Does it help, or is it chaos? No?
It helps if the kids are willing to actually talk to one another. I just tried it for the first time the other day, and I was so excited. I went into each room and none of them were talking. So I was like, okay, breakout room done. So I don't know, maybe it was because it was first hour. I didn't try it again after that because I was frustrated.
Maybe you got to create a special badge for a breakout room leader, and maybe they're the ones who kind of host it.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I do is I designate somebody who's responsible as that leader for the session, and then give them, hey, here's the 5 things that we have to achieve during this. So they kind of have to push what that conversation looks like, and because they're going to present on that when they come back. When we go off into doing some sort of activity, it's not me that they're coming back to talk to; it's the rest of the class. So they need to be able to share those ideas. So yeah, that's one of the things that I would do. And sometimes what I do is if there's 5 people in a group, I'll start with the first person. If it's a 3-hour session, if I've got 4 or 5 different activities, that I just kind of have them pass the baton. So, the first person in that list was the leader for that activity. The next person in the list becomes the leader for the next activity. So they're all going to get a shot at being the leader. Which means they all have to produce. And that gives me the ability to be able to assess a lot of those things too. So that's really important.
Jen Williamson, can you talk a little bit about what you just posted?
About the Swank films.
Mm-hmm.
It's a streaming service, and it allows you to give a code to the students, and then they can go in and access any film that they have in their subscription. And they give you a list of 200 films that are already included in the subscription. And then you can add on an additional 25 for the one cost. And so far, I found that almost all of my films are already part of their 200 list. And I only have to request 5 films this year. So it's working great. There's an app for it too. So the kids can download the app and use it on their, use it on their iPhones.
Cool. So that takes care of the copyrights issues with movies and things like that, as well as
Yeah,
sharing
it's about
links and everything.
$2,200 for the entire high school, and you can have like 2,000 kids on it. And I purchased it just for my 140 kids. So
I wonder if they'd let DAFT purchase one, and then we could share it with each, treat DAFT as a high school and each one of you as one of its teachers. I wonder if we could wiggle through that.
that would have been, better use of my subscription because, oh my goodness.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Is there an attorney on the line? We'll find out, but that might be something. Remind me tomorrow at our board meeting, Jen. I want to talk about that. That might
All
be,
right, will do.
That might be a really good extra incentive for people that have a school membership is they get this access to that. Because I think even if we total all our schools and everybody were watching the movie, I don't think we get to 2,000 viewers. So that's good. All right, good. See, all these ideas come out of these things. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Scott, I'm going to put your slide into our Google folder as well. And are there any other questions for Scott or any other real big snags where you're having trouble with? And Scott, are you okay if I share your email address with people?
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing that I had was kind of, as a best practice around content, 15 to 20 minute chunks of content, and then do something different. Learner engagement. There was a big study that we just did that I've kind of shared with a lot of my trainers in the field is that, learner engagement right now is less than 2 minutes. And, if they're distracted after 2 minutes, think of them sitting through an hour-long lecture. It just doesn't work, right? So whatever you can do, chunk content, be a storyteller, and a lot of what you have to do right now has to be learner-driven. There's stuff that some of your students already know. Let them be the pilot for some of this stuff. So,
Yep. It's always like this weird time machine you go into. If you got a great presenter, or a really great movie, you can say, all right, I'll watch Lord of the Rings. Okay, I've got 12 hours on my hand, but it's, and other times it's torture,
Right.
So it's and I think everybody's going through that. I think the other thing we could talk about at lunchtime too is just the technology side of audio. Like this is this little microphone is what I had to use to bail us out in the other room because I had to have this one faced at Jeremy, and that was still, he was 6-8 feet away and it still sounded pretty decent. So, all right, well, we are going to shift gears and I'm going to turn it off and then, but I'll have it on again. I'm also going to record the lunch session, this 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock time. 12:30 is not part of the sketches, continuing credit hours, but we're gonna, from 11 to 12:30, we are gonna keep everything open, just so people that want to drop in during their lunch, they can hop on board and share ideas and things like that, whether it's ideas for the festival, DAFT, or future workshops and that kind of thing. So Scott and Adam, thank you very much for hosting this session, and
Thanks
I
for
will
having
log
us.
off, getting
Yeah.
some nice applause.